This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Friday, November 22nd, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Matt Gaetz pulls his name from consideration as President-elect Trump names a new potential nominee for Attorney General. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Vladimir Putin says Russia has attacked Ukraine with a new ballistic missile.
These could be nuclear tipped.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
For the third time in the U.S., a death row inmate has been executed with the use of nitrogen gas. I'm Jackie Quinn.
A plea from the father of a Georgia high school shooter.
Every kid in that school was a victim.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off a winning day yesterday with the Dow soaring 450 points. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Transgender teen girls who play soccer and run track in New Hampshire are challenging the state's Fairness in Women's Sports Act. I'm Jennifer King.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Just a week after President-elect Donald Trump named former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz as his choice to be the next Attorney General, Gaetz suddenly pulled his name from consideration. John Stolnis has the latest from Washington.
Gaetz' decision to remove himself from consideration comes one day after he met with Republican members of the Senate on Capitol Hill, and one day after the House Ethics Committee voted not to make public their investigation into allegations he engaged in sexual relationships with minors. In a statement on social media, Gaetz said he didn't want to be a distraction to the new administration. Trump on Truth Social said he appreciated Gaetz' efforts and wished him well. Before leaving town for the Thanksgiving break, some senators reacted to the news. Republican Kevin Cramer.
There's a sense of relief about it, of course. I think he did a pretty noble thing, frankly, honorable thing by getting out himself. I thought his statement was appropriate, and I look forward to a new nominee that we can get fully behind.
Democratic Senator Peter Welch said he's happy his Republican colleagues did their job.
My Republican colleagues who did the interviewing and made an assessment, obviously sent a message. So the big question for the Senate as an institution, will we exercise our constitutional responsibility for advice and consent? I see this as a good sign that the Senate will do that.
What's next for Gaetz? There is speculation Florida Governor Ron DeSantis could appoint him to replace Marco Rubio in the Senate if Rubio becomes Secretary of State. And even though Gaetz resigned from this session of Congress, Republican Congressman Jason Smith tells Fox News he thinks Gaetz, who was reelected earlier this month, could return to the House in January.
So anything's possible. This is Washington Hill. Expect the unexpected.
Trump wasted no time naming a replacement, former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was the first woman ever elected Attorney General in Florida and served as one of Trump's lawyers during his first impeachment. She forcefully defended Trump during the New York hush money trial back in May.
I've prosecuted hundreds of jury trials in a courtroom very similar to the one today, yet I've never seen anything like this. A judge is supposed to be a neutral arbiter of facts.
Republican Senator Mike Round spoke to CNN on whether he has any concerns regarding her efforts to help overturn the 2020 presidential election.
As those questions come up, they're going to be brought up by Republicans and Democrats. She'll have to answer them. And you know, look, she'll have to work her way through this process like anybody else.
John Stolnis, Washington.
The war between Russia and Ukraine took a dangerous turn with the Kremlin's use of a new experimental missile, blaming the United States and NATO for its launch. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
Vladimir Putin says Russia has attacked Ukraine with a new ballistic missile in response to Kyiv's use this week of missiles provided by the U.S. and Britain.
As a response to the use of US and UK manufactured weapons, the Russian forces have carried out a combined strike on one of the military-industrial facilities in Ukraine. This included the test of a novel intermediate-range ballistic missile with a non-nuclear hypersonic payload was used.
Putin says the missile's called Oreshnik, Russian for hazelnut tree. Flying at 10 times the speed of sound, he says U.S. air defenses cannot stop it, and it can be used to strike any Ukrainian ally whose missiles are used to attack Russia.
This was a new type of lethal capability that was employed on the battlefield, so that's certainly of concern to us.
Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh says it was a new experimental type of intermediate-range missile based on Russia's existing intercontinental ballistic missile.
With a range way beyond any of that seen in this conflict so far.
British military expert Matthew Saville says it was a clear message from Putin to Ukraine's allies.
Signaling to the Ukrainians, we've got stuff that outranges you, but really signaling to the West, we're happy to enter into a competition around intermediate range ballistic missiles. P.S. These could be nuclear tipped. Do you really want to take that risk?
In Kyiv, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his crazy neighbor showed again what he really is and urges Western nations to mount a tough response to the Russian launch. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Today's top stories are brought to you by Sleep Number. Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? It's the only bed that allows you to make each side firmer or softer whenever you want. Save 40% on the Sleep Number Special Edition smart bed. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com. When we return on America in the Morning, father of an alleged high school shooter has his day in court after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The calendar says fall. The weather feels like winter in many spots. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
The East's initial round of wintry weather has not disappointed to this point, with inches of snow already falling for the Chicago area and a chunk of northeastern Pennsylvania and neighboring parts of New York. While conditions gradually improve for the weekend as the storm responsible for these conditions drifts out to sea, today does bring a rather active day for many from New England into the mid-Atlantic, with snow likely for much of the day through the Appalachians from West Virginia into southwestern Pennsylvania. Snow instead changes to rain for south central Pennsylvania and southern and central New York, with precipitation falling as all rain from Delaware through New England, outside of some areas of mountain snow in northern New England. Showers also reach as far to the west as lower Michigan through the day today. Parts of the West face yet another day of heavy flooding rainfall, mainly from northern parts of the San Francisco area through the rest of Northern California, where rainfall since Tuesday is expected to reach over a foot in some places through tonight. Watch for rain and mountain snow as well across the interior, from Montana to eastern Washington, and southward for much of Idaho and the eastern half of Oregon, with precip turning less steady for western Oregon and Washington for today. However, the heaviest precipitation shifts from California back toward the Pacific Northwest coast for Saturday. Outside of those areas, a large portion of the remainder of the nation has a rain and snow-free Friday to come. A very dry end to the work week is in store across the center of the nation, and while chilly conditions greet many in the southeast, milder air instead works its way into the southwest. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, look for some sun today with a high of 62. For Reno, Nevada, rain arrives in the afternoon with a high of 58. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Alabama has carried out the nation's third nitrogen gas execution on a convicted murderer. Jackie Quinn reports on the executed man's final words and actions.
An Alabama inmate convicted in the 1994 killing of a woman hitchhiker is dead. 50-year-old Kerry Grayson, strapped to a gurney with a blue-rimmed gas mask over his face, cursed at the prison warden and raised both his middle fingers in an obscene gesture in his final minutes. Once the gas was flowing, Grayson shook and pulled against the restraints. At one point, his legs raised up in the air. He took a series of gasping breaths for several minutes and then became still. The nitrogen gas deprives the body of oxygen and has raised complaints it's suffocation. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey issued a statement praying for the family of the victim, 37-year-old Vicky DeBlue. I'm Jackie Quinn.
The father of an accused high school shooter in Georgia is entering a plea in the case surrounding his alleged role in the deadly killings. Correspondent Clayton Neville has details.
Colin Gray has pleaded not guilty to charges connected to the deadly shooting at Appalachia High School. His son Colt Gray is charged in the killings of 2 teachers and 2 students with a semi-automatic rifle inside the school. Barrow County District Attorney Brad Smith said the killings rocked that community.
Charged victims we have are the ones that the crime was actually directed towards, but every person, every kid in that school was a victim.
Colin Gray faces 29 charges, including second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. In court, Georgia Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Lucas Baer read from a notebook that Colt Gray is said to have described his plan in.
Take out your 60-rounder and put it in and chamber a round. Check your vest and make sure it's on tight. Once done, check stock to make sure it's in your preferred setting. Put on hat, make sure hair is out of your face. Set backpack to the side. Pick up rifle with right hand. Open stall door with left. Don't shoot anyone in the bathroom. You'll alert people.
Prosecutors accuse Colin Gray of knowing about his son's so-called obsession with school shooters. Gray told investigators he gave his son the rifle and the ammo used in the shooting. I'm Clayton Neville.
In sports from the NFL, with heavy snow falling, the Cleveland Browns stunned the Pittsburgh Steelers in a 24-19. When we return on America in the Morning, Trump's cryptocurrency promise and AI chips just can't be made fast enough after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. How will we find markets opening this Friday? Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day for stocks yesterday, with the Dow soaring more than 450 points. For NVIDIA, it was volatile. It popped to a record high in the morning, then dropped, but the chip maker finished more than 1% higher yesterday.
The tech giant we know just can't churn out its breakthrough Blackwell AI chips fast enough to meet soaring demand. That was the main theme on yesterday's call, which means supply remains constrained for several quarters and the NVIDIA growth story stays intact.
CNBC's Christina Partsinevelis. Bitcoin hit a record high of more than $98,000. It's been raging toward that $100,000 mark. Meantime, President-elect Donald Trump's company DJT Media, which owns Truth Social, it's getting into the cryptocurrency business. This after the future president vowed to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world.
Trump Media and Technology Group filed an application on Monday for a service dubbed TruthFi. Now, the trademark application describes this as a cryptocurrency payment processing platform that would trade in digital assets. And guys, this comes just a few days after a report from the FT that said that the company was also considering acquiring Bakkt, which is a publicly traded crypto exchange that specializes in B2B payments.
CNBC's Mackenzie Sagalos. More existing homes sold last month, the first increase year over year since 2021.
Sales up 2.9% from October of last year, the first annual increase in over 3 years. Now, this count is based on signed contracts, so deals inked in August and September, when the average on the 30-year fixed actually came down sharply, bottoming at 6.1%. The supply of homes for sale was up just over 19% year over year.
CNBC's Diana Olick. American Airlines will start shaming line cutters at the gate at the airport who try to board planes early. A loud beep will sound if a flyer tries to get on from a group that hasn't been called yet. Airlines offer their big spending frequent flyers earlier boarding as a perk, and they're trying to stop line cutters, sometimes called gate lice, on social media. The labor picture is solid. We've had strikes, job cuts in this country, but the number of people who applied for unemployment benefits last week hit its lowest in 7 months.
We're now at the lowest level on initial jobless claims since April. It's at the same level as a year ago. So what does that say? It says companies are not firing people at a faster rate. The layoffs remaining for the economy as a whole relatively low here.
Green Capital economist John Writing on CNBC. On today's watch list, we get the latest on consumer sentiment. Formula One qualifying today ahead of the Las Vegas Grand Prix tomorrow night. New in theaters, Paramount's Gladiator 2 and Universal's Wicked. Universal's a sister company to CNBC.
There's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, transgender athletes in girls' sports heads to court after these messages. This is America in the Morning. 2 court cases underway in New Hampshire focus on girls' sports and transgender athletes. Following proceedings, correspondent Jennifer King.
A New Hampshire law signed in July bars transgender athletes in grades 5 to 12 from teams that align with their gender identity. About half of states in the U.S. have passed similar laws. One player involved in the first case is also part of another case with parents who wore pink wristbands with an XX representing the female chromosomes to protest transgender athletes on girls' teams. School district officials in Bow, New Hampshire are defending their decision to bar the wristbands, citing a duty to protect a transgender soccer player from intimidation and harassment. The parents are suing the district, saying their First Amendment rights were violated. I'm Jennifer King.
This weekend begins the Thanksgiving holiday travel season, and AAA predicts a record 80 million people will be traveling 50 miles or more from home. As gas prices are now lower than last year, more than 70 million of those travelers will be in cars. AAA says there's already high demand for rental cars, with many airport locations sold out. The average price for a gallon of regular gas is now $3.06, and 29 states have gas prices at the pump below $3 a gallon. America in the Morning for Friday, November 22nd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Matt Gaetz has withdrawn as President-elect Trump's pick to be Attorney General. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The state of Texas willing to chip in on President-elect Trump's plan for mass deportation. I'm Clayton Neville.
It's a day 61 years ago that will live in infamy.
3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
Kennedy shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. I'm Jim Rubin.
The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm Karen Chamas.
A concession in the Pennsylvania Senate election, and a court clears Jussie Smollett.
The Wizard of Oz gets a tragic villain backstory treatment with Wicked Part 1. I'm Kevin Carr.
We're back after these messages. America in the Morning continues with active weather. The nation's forecast this Friday from AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
The west stays stormy not only through the start of the weekend, but even into Monday for some spots, as a very active storm track carries wave after wave of rain and some snow across mainly the northwest and northern and central California over the coming days. For today, the best risk for heavy rain extends from the North Bay area near San Francisco toward the Oregon border. However, steady rain can extend across much of central and eastern Oregon, Idaho, and an area from western Montana back to eastern Washington, with showers for the coast of the Pacific Northwest thanks to the latest intense disturbance sitting offshore. Waves of energy reinforce the wet weather through Sunday, when the focus shifts more decidedly over more of California for the heaviest precipitation. Storm total rainfall of over a foot is expected for some in northern California through Friday evening. The other main zone of active weather continues to be the east, where a storm tracking southward near the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border brings continued steady snow from southern New York into the high ground of West Virginia, widespread steady rain from Maine through northern New England and along the Canadian border, and a mix of rain and snow from south-central Pennsylvania through most of Ohio. More showery conditions can be expected from southern New England across Long Island, as well as over lower Michigan. Storm total snowfall can approach a foot from northeastern Pennsylvania across the border into parts of southern New York, as well as around the Appalachian Mountains from West Virginia into southwestern Pennsylvania, with this rather impressive first event of the cold season. The entire rest of the nation looks largely precipitation-free today, with milder weather arriving for the southwest, a chilly Friday to end the work week in the southeast, and rather low humidity for the plains. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Matt Gaetz, who was facing increasing skepticism from GOP senators, as well as potentially new allegations of impropriety, has pulled himself out of consideration to be the nation's chief law officer. Hours later, Florida AG Pam Bondi has been tapped by Donald Trump to become Attorney General. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
I was shocked by the nomination, given the many allegations.
The side that wins, they get to pick the people. And, you know, I hope and I expect that there's going to be enough that we can work together, and I'm looking for that. And then there's going to be some picks that are unacceptable.
No rubber stamps and no lynch mob. I'm not going to legitimize the process to destroy the man because people don't like his politics.
Matt Gaetz has withdrawn as President-elect Trump's pick to be Attorney General. The ex-congressman was already a controversial figure and was under scrutiny over a federal sex trafficking investigation. That cast doubt over whether even the GOP-led Senate would confirm him as the nation's top federal law enforcement officer. Gaetz says it's clear his confirmation process was a distraction for the Trump transition effort. His withdrawal is a blow to Trump's push for getting loyalists in his administration, and the first sign the president-elect could face resistance even from members of his own party. Before Gaetz's announcement,
our founders knew that checks and balances were important, and if the Senate caves on these nominations, we don't have checks and balances on Donald Trump.
Jim Himes, the House Intelligence Panel's top Democrat, called on the Senate to reject Gaetz.
If Matt Gaetz, who is probably the singular worst cabinet nomination in American history. I'm not sure that's true because I'm not up on what Garfield did, but you know, the idea that somebody with his temperament, with disdain for the rule of law, would run the DOJ is insane.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A woman who accused President-elect Donald Trump's pick for defense secretary of sexually assaulting her in 2017 tells her side of the story in an investigative report just made public. With more details, here's correspondent Donna Warder.
Fox News personality Pete Hegseth, who's also President Donald Trump's nominee to be defense secretary, told police that an October 2017 encounter he had with a woman in a California hotel room had been consensual. But in a 22-page report just made public, the woman says it was not consensual. The woman, who helped organize a California Federation of Republican Women gathering at a hotel, says in the report that she had a drink at the bar with a group of people that included Hegseth, and she says that's where things became fuzzy. She says she had argued earlier with Hegseth about his inappropriately touching several women during the event, and somehow she ended up in a hotel room with Hegseth, who took her phone, wouldn't let her leave, and assaulted her. She says she didn't remember the assault until a few days later and went to the hospital. Hegseth said the woman led him by the arm back to his hotel room. His attorney says Hegseth paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit. I'm Donna Warder.
The state of Texas is offering land to the incoming Trump administration to be used for the president-elect's plan for mass deportations. From the Lone Star State, America in the Morning's Clayton Neville has that story.
For years, Texas National Guard members and state troopers have been cracking down on illegal immigration in Texas, leading to arrests and at times chases through border towns.
Stop! Stop! That's him. That's him. That's him. Get him. Go ahead. Hey, all units hold traffic. 30103 Del Rio. I got 1 note 95.
In Starr County, Texas, the sounds of border wall going up. The land was recently bought by the Texas General Land Office. Don Buckingham is the Texas Land Commissioner.
And so we purchased this property at the request of the Texas Facilities Commission, which, of course, is the entity building the wall. And they said, look, we've got this problematic landowner. She won't let law enforcement on the property. Of course, when the bad guys know that law enforcement isn't there and they get a free pass, worse things happen, atrocity after atrocity happening on that property, blocking the wall being built on our property as well. So we came to a fair market offer. We closed on that property actually during early voting. Within 24 hours, we had the easement for the wall, and we have the border wall already being constructed there. Texas is moving fast.
She said she and her team thought the incoming Trump administration, with border a top priority, could use the help in its plan for mass deportations.
And we said maybe they need a deportation and detention center right here on the border. We've got good road access to it. We're close to an international airport. we're close to a bridge over the river. So whatever the Trump team needs, we're going to be here standing with them arm in arm and get this job done.
The land commissioner spoke with KLIF News Radio in Dallas, but wouldn't say for certain if she's heard back from the Trump team on the offer for the 1,400-acre property.
Well, of course, they are incredibly busy right now, but we hear through back channels that they are taking a look at it, and we will see. We do have a press conference on Tuesday on the property, so you never know what we might be announcing then, but we'll just have to see.
This is new orange border buoys are placed in the Rio Grande River along the Texas-Mexico border. The state has used the buoys as a deterrent to people crossing the river into the U.S. illegally. The barriers, though, were subject of a drawn-out legal battle. The state now making it known that it has the all clear to return the buoys to the water. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, a look back on the day America stopped after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. It was 61 years ago today that the world suddenly came to a stop when the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated on a campaign stop in Dallas. With a look back, here's correspondent Jim Roop.
It's a day for those who are alive on that day and old enough to remember will never forget. For those watching As the World Turns on CBS...
He said something about not wanting her to have Thanksgiving dinner alone. He didn't think it was right.
A sudden program interruption that turned the nation upside down.
There was a bulletin from CBS News. In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
President Kennedy, along with his wife, First Lady Jacqueline, were in an open touring car, along with Texas Governor Connally and his wife, campaigning in the Lone Star State. That fateful afternoon, the streets were lined with people vying to see the President and Mrs. Kennedy in that motorcade as it made its way from Main Street to Elm Street to what's called Dealey Plaza, passing the Texas Book Depository building. About 12:30. Shots rang out. President Kennedy was hit in the throat and in the head. He slumped toward Mrs. Kennedy. The president rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, but nothing could be done. At 1:38 p.m. Dallas time, the announcement to the American people from CBS News anchor Walter Cronkite.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
Lee Harvey Oswald, an employee of the School Book Depository, was arrested for the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit nearly an hour and a half after Kennedy was assassinated and later charged with the president's murder. Oswald denying the charge.
The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
2 days later, Oswald was shot by nightclub owner Jack Ruby live on television in the basement of the Dallas police station.
There is Lee. He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald.
He died a short time later at Parkland Hospital, the same hospital where President Kennedy was pronounced dead. Ruby was subsequently sentenced to death for the murder of Oswald. In 1964, the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald was the lone shooter in the killing of President Kennedy, a finding still being questioned today. I'm Jim Roop.
In a move being denounced by the United States, arrest warrants have been issued by the International Criminal Court for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports.
The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his former defense minister Yoav Gallant, and Hamas officials. The court has accused them of war crimes and crimes against humanity over Israel's actions in Gaza and the October 7th Hamas attacks in southern Israel.
What in God's name are they talking about in The Hague? The truth is simple. No war is more just than the war that Israel has been waging in Gaza after Hamas attacked us unprovoked, launching the worst massacre against the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
The warrants come as health officials in Gaza said the Palestinian death toll in the enclave has surpassed 44,000. They have said the real toll is higher because thousands of bodies are buried under the rubble or in areas that medics cannot access.
War crimes and crimes against humanity must be investigated and prosecuted. And we have to support the International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice.
In a statement, Netanyahu rejected the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant against him, calling it absurd and false.
Israel will not recognize the validity of this decision.
I'm Karen Chamas.
It's official in Pennsylvania. Senator Bob Casey has conceded his re-election bid to Republican David McCormick as a statewide recount showed no signs of closing the gap. Casey's concession comes more than 2 weeks after Election Day, which was followed by several lawsuits over ballot counting in the Keystone State. As the recount was concluding, McCormick led by about 16,000 votes out of almost 7 million ballots counted. Republicans will have a 53-47 majority beginning next year in the U.S. Senate. If you use one of the payment services, PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, your transactions may now be regulated like a credit union or bank account. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
If you're using a casual pay system like Cash App, Apple Pay, or PayPal, these financial transactions will soon be regulated more like banks. The U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will supervise digital payment providers that process more than 50 million transactions each year. The rule is meant to give the regulator the authority to oversee compliance with federal laws surrounding privacy, fraud, and other rules through proactive examinations. According to the site globaldata.com, it is estimated that PayPal in 2021 made nearly 19.3 billion transactions to the total payment volume amount of $1.25 trillion. The director of the CFPB, Rohit Chopra, said that digital payments have gone from a novelty to a necessity, and our oversight must reflect this reality. And in crypto news, Bitcoin is expected to reach $100,000 per coin before close of business today. For more, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Friday Sports on America in the Morning. Here's our Robert Workman.
NFL Week 12 kicked off last night as the Browns took down the Steelers 24-19 in snowy Cleveland, ending Pittsburgh's 5-game winning streak. Nick Chubb ran for 2 touchdowns, the latter in the final minute, a year after sustaining a season-ending knee injury against the Steelers. Week 13 in college football, top-ranked Oregon has a bye week. Tomorrow, number 2 Ohio State hosts number 5 Indiana, 3rd-ranked Texas is home for Kentucky, and 4th-ranked Penn State is at Minnesota. 2 other top 25 matchups, number 8 Notre Dame faces number 19 Army at Yankee Stadium, and 14th-ranked BYU is at number 21 Arizona State. Baseball's MVPs announced: Aaron Judge of the Yankees and Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers, both unanimous choices. Ohtani became the first player to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in a season, on the heels of signing that gargantuan $700 million free agent contract last winter. Judge, meantime, led the majors in homers, RBI, and OPS. NHL, the Bruins blanked Utah 1-0 in their first game since firing coach Jim Montgomery. Eunice Korpisalo made 21 saves. Elias Lindholm had the only goal, making a winner of interim coach Joe Sacco.
Feels pretty good. And I'm not going to lie to you, obviously. I think that to get our guys to get a win, too, was even more important, to feel better about themselves. And I think how we went about the game tonight was a business-like approach.
That's Friday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, actor gets criminal conviction overturned after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Illinois Supreme Court overturned actor Jussie Smollett's conviction on charges of staging a racist and homophobic attack against himself in 2019 and lying to Chicago police. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
The case starts with a racist and homophobic attack against Jussie Smollett in Chicago in 2019. Prosecutors said he staged it against himself and lied to police.
Prosecutions should be based on facts.
Prosecution should not be based on vindictiveness. This was a vindictive persecution, not a prosecution. Let's not make any mistake about that.
The Cook County State's Attorney's Office dropped an initial 16 counts of disorderly conduct. Smollett's attorneys have argued he performed community service and forfeited a $10,000 bond, and the case was over then. A special prosecutor took over, and a grand jury restored charges. Smollett was convicted on 5 counts in 2021. A state appellate court upheld the conviction. The Illinois Supreme Court heard arguments in September and has overturned Smollett's conviction.
There was no dissent. 5-0 saying he was treated unfairly, that this was an unfair process. And when you have an unfair process, you have a travesty of justice, which is exactly what happened here.
He has maintained his innocence. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
In what's expected to be a big weekend for movies, a Broadway favorite has made it to the big screen. Kevin Carr has a sneak peek at Wicked.
A Broadway favorite has finally made its way over the rainbow and onto the silver screen.
I am Oz, the great and powerful.
Based on the Tony Award-winning musical, Wicked takes an alternative look at the villain from The Wizard of Oz and her friendship with Glinda the Good in school.
Welcome, new students, to Shiz University.
The tragic villain backstory has been done many times before, from Maleficent and Cruella de Vil to Darth Vader and Magneto. Both Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo do fine jobs making the parts their own. We all knew they could sing, but their acting really brings the movie to life.
The wonderful Wizard of Oz summons you to the Emerald City. Come with me.
What?
To meet the wizard.
Why couldn't possibly? This is your moment. I'm coming.
Along with eye-popping production design and a handful of fantastic songs, as well as too much padded exposition and middling show tunes, this is everything the Broadway fan wants.
It's the wizard who should be afraid of me.
The Achilles heel is the punishing 2-hour, 41-minute running time, and that's only half the story. Wicked Part 2 comes out this time next year.
This is so much bigger than us.
The first 2 hours drag with needlessly bloated subplots that never resolve, and unfortunately, that makes for a mixed bag.
The best way to bring folks together is to give them a real good enemy.
Wicked Part 1 gets 3 broomsticks out of 5. I'm Kevin Carr, and that's the way I see it.
America in the Morning for Friday, November 22nd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.